In the movie, our main character is JP, a young Mexican-American man. One day at a lively house party, JP and his family are engrossed in joyful conversations. His sister Lily keeps herself busy crafting fortune origami and passing it to everyone. Out of the blue, immigration officers burst into the house, detaining the entire family. JP and Lily desperately try to connect with each other when the screen fades to black. The following day, all immigrant families in America, including JP's, are in turmoil due to a new law introduced by Governor Finn Harper. This strict policy leaves no room for leniency towards any undocumented immigrants or their children, even if they were born and raised in the United States. As per this law, illegal immigrants will be imprisoned while their children face deportation to their home countries. They will be separated into groups and confined to camps until further action is taken. JP found himself separated from his family and relocated to a crowded place with strangers. After 2 days in this camp, he finally spotted Lily outside. He attempted to reach out to her, but she was quickly whisked away on a bus. In the midst of all this, numerous protests against the governor were brewing, led by supporters of the Democratic Party. They proposed a bill to reverse the recent law, but it was ultimately rejected by the parliament. On the 4th day, JP and a few others were summoned to meet with an immigration officer. She presented various options for reuniting with their families, but most involved hefty expenses or hiring a lawyer. The simplest way out seemed to be participating in a community service program. Those who applied would be sent to an old-age home where they would care for elderly and ailing retirees. If they successfully completed their service terms, their families would be released, and they could return to their regular lives. The program raised some eyebrows from the get-go as it appeared a bit shady, beginning with its selective recruitment of only a few young participants. However, the children, desperate to free their parents, didn't hesitate to accept the offer. During the selection process, JP struck up friendships with a diverse group of people. First, there was Big Mac, a charismatic black Hispanic guy with a reputation as a ladies' man, who seemed rather indifferent to the program's legitimacy. Then came Camilla, a dedicated Democratic protester with a passion for social change. There was also Chris, a paranoid individual who harbored suspicions of the program's true intentions, convinced that they might be drugged and met a grim fate. Finally, the enigmatic Argentinian girl Micah joined their ranks. Upon arriving at the old-age home, they were greeted by Eric Dane, the program's founder. He welcomed them with gratitude for their active involvement in society and offered a brief speech about the program serving as a valuable learning experience for many young individuals. Subsequently, they were entrusted to the care of the security officers. Cynthia and James soon realized that the establishment's officers acted as their overseers, deciding who would be allowed to leave first and who would stay. To keep track of their whereabouts, participants were required to wear trackers on their feet, a detail that continued to raise suspicions among the newcomers. However, most of them brushed off these concerns. During their orientation, they were given a tour of the facility, with the officers overseeing their every move. As they strolled through the garden, JP's gaze locked with that of an elderly woman named Greta. Her intense and unusual stare held his attention, and the moment was unsettling. Once inside the lounge area, they were tasked with entertaining the elderly guests. Their duties included engaging in conversation, reading books, playing chess, and other activities to ensure the guests with dementia didn't wander off. The situation became increasingly surreal as the new participants settled into their roles. During the lunch break, JP and his group gathered together to eat, but the taste of the meatloaf was utterly revolting, further dampening their spirits. The fact that they had to endure this unappetizing food for the duration of their stay only added to their disillusionment. Chris, in particular, refused to eat or drink anything, firmly convinced that the government had tampered with their meals. He solely relied on his inhaler throughout the meal while his companions attempted to eat. After the meal, they finally had the opportunity to socialize with the elderly residents. Each participant paired up with a guest, but JP couldn't help but scan the room for Greta. When he approached her, she remained silent, fixating her gaze on him. JP interpreted this as a cue to engage her, so he started reading a book. Unexpectedly, Greta lost control of her emotions and whispered to JP that he would die there. Her words were unceasing, causing great distress. In response, Cynthia acted swiftly to sedate Greta and removed her from the room. JP was left in shock and weighed down by guilt, convinced that he had triggered the elderly woman's breakdown. As an entire day passed in the facility, Chris continued to refuse food, and his lack of nutrition worsened his existing paranoia. He became convinced that the window at the back of the dining hall was one-sided and that someone was spying on them from the other side. The rest of the group remained skeptical of his claims. In an attempt to prove himself, Chris attempted to open the door, but this led to his sedation and subsequent removal to the infirmary. Later that night, JP woke up and made his way to the restroom. On his journey, he encountered an owl that flew away as he approached. Moments later, he heard a noise coming from the darkness and saw a naked elderly woman staring directly at him. She yelled, "Virgil will set you free," and lunged at JP. He was frozen in shock until security arrived and took the woman away. They explained that she had simply run away from her room, but JP couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously amiss with her. The next day, work began early, and as JP and the security officer James cared for an elderly man, a heated argument broke out between them. James used racist slurs, which only added to the tension. During this altercation, JP was attacked once more and lost consciousness. He eventually woke up in the afternoon, surprised to find Lily in the room with him. She disclosed that she had been with him all along and urged him to look harder. However, JP abruptly woke up for real, realizing it was only a dream. Still, Lily's enigmatic comment lingered in his mind throughout the day. Meanwhile, Chris had not returned since his last sedation. When Cynthia was questioned about his whereabouts, she claimed that he had been sent back to the detention center due to disobedience. However, Big Mac disagreed with her account, bluntly stating that he had found Chris's inhaler in the hallways just an hour ago. This discovery strongly suggested that Chris was still within the facility, raising even more questions about the true nature of their situation. As it became increasingly evident that the workers were hiding something from them, Big Mac had a well-intentioned idea to bring Greta to her friend Philip's room, hoping it would be a positive bonding experience for the two elderly residents. However, as he was setting up the TV, something inexplicable occurred. Philip's bones started cracking, and he tumbled off the bed in a matter of seconds. His behavior became erratic, as if he were possessed, and he ultimately succumbed to his condition. The cause of death was officially declared as heart failure, though Big Mac was deeply traumatized by the disturbing events he had witnessed. On that same day, Eddie called James and JP into the front yard and introduced them to his pet owl, Virgil. The encounter triggered JP's memory of the first night he was attacked by an owl, but he didn't dwell on it too much. Eddie expressed his belief that JP could become a permanent employee like James and encouraged him to stay close. JP, however, was not inclined to remain at the facility permanently and feigned interest in front of Eddie. When Eddie asked them to hug as a sign of goodwill, JP seized the opportunity to discreetly steal the key to the tracker on his foot. He bided his time, waiting until nightfall to unlock the tracker and take a step toward regaining his freedom. Initially, JP went to Mac's room, only to find him immersed in a self-care day, complete with face masks and music. Mac declined to join JP outside, so he continued his quest and visited Camilla's room. Camilla, too, unlocked her tracker and decided to enjoy some precious moments of freedom on her own. Finally, JP was left with Micah, and together they indulged in some stolen alcohol inside the pool. JP found himself drawn to Micah, and she reciprocated his interest. They flirted for about an hour before sharing a kiss and moving into her bedroom. The night was filled with passion. The following morning, JP woke up to find an elderly lady beside him in the bed. He was initially startled, but he soon learned that she had climbed into the bed at random due to her dementia. Later, JP began recounting the events of the previous night to Mac, but halfway through the story, he realized he couldn't remember what happened after getting into bed. As he tried to piece together the missing memories, he noticed Greta playing with a fortune-telling origami. This instantly brought to mind his sister, who used to make the same origami for her cousins. JP inquired if someone had given it to Greta, but she didn't respond. Instead, she held his hands and began trembling. As JP and the rest of the group discussed the strange incident involving Greta, Camilla disclosed that she couldn't recall anything from the previous night, as if she had blacked out. They also noticed a mark on her neck, leading them to suspect that she might have been sedated. As darkness fell, JP decided to investigate the facility. His first stop was the infirmary, a restricted area for everyone except the security guards. He approached Greta and saw a butterfly tattoo behind her ears, which sent shockwaves of recognition through him. The tattoo was identical to the one he had seen on his sister on the night their house was raided. The realization hit him like a ton of bricks. The elderly lady he had been caring for was, in fact, his sister. Before he could take any action, James discovered him and knocked him out. The following day, the rest of the group grew increasingly concerned about JP's disappearance, prompting them to launch their own investigation. Micah and Mac decided to snoop around Eddie's office in search of clues, while Camilla remained outside to keep a watchful eye on James. As Micah and Mac rummaged through the office, they stumbled upon a blueprint of what appeared to be a grinding machine, raising their suspicions further. Their search was almost foiled when James entered the room, but they managed to stay hidden in a corner, evading his notice. Elsewhere, JP woke up in a wheelchair beside two individuals his age. However, when they turned to face him, he was left utterly speechless. One half of their faces were old and wrinkled, while the other half appeared young and vibrant. To his astonishment, JP soon realized that the same transformation had happened to him as well. JP found himself alone in the room, realizing that to escape, he had to input a password. After some thought, he typed Virgil and managed to unlock the door. Though he didn't try 69 and 420 first, perhaps he didn't want to draw attention to his escape attempt. Simultaneously, Governor Finn and Eddie were dining at one of their co-owned chain restaurants, Liberty Burgers, delighted by the recent profits. During their conversation, Finn inquired about any complaints regarding the burger patties in the past month. Eddie confidently asserted that it was impossible, as he had discovered the perfect alternative for ham. JP, on the other hand, had ventured into the production room back at the facility. To his utter shock, he discovered dead bodies sealed in Ziploc bags. The horrifying truth is revealed. Eddie uses human meat and bones to make the burger patties because real meat is too expensive. They use the bodies of refugee immigrant youngsters as a source of commercial meat. These unfortunate individuals are subjected to different hormones to tenderize the human meat, which results in accelerated aging as a side effect. This macabre process provides the business with the perfect cover for their gruesome operations. JP is overwhelmed by this revelation and tries to make a hasty escape. However, he runs into Micah, who drops another bombshell. She was planted by Eddie to keep an eye on everyone from the inside. Meanwhile, Mac takes refuge in the vent to hide from the people involved in these sinister activities. He has also discovered that they are being drugged daily. After some time, he manages to reach the top of Camilla's room through the vent and hands her a key to unlock her tracker. They decide to approach the situation from different angles to help JP. Camilla ventures to the dining hall and confirms that Chris was right about the one-way window. In fact, Chris was right about everything. Before she can share this discovery with the others, she is violently knocked out. Upon regaining consciousness, she finds herself with half of her face aged, with JP by her side, telling her that they don't have much time. Though they lacked strength, they resolved to plot a nighttime assault. In the beginning, everyone, including the elderly, ensured that Cynthia, Mika, and Jamie's were the sole occupants of the room. They then encircled the trio and launched their attack. JP attempted to flee, but in his struggle with a guard, his urine bag was seized. Despite the agony, he persevered and continued to fight. Eventually, Mac and the remaining elderly individuals made their escape outside, leaving JP, Camilla, and Lily inside the production room. There, they came across Chris, who was miraculously still alive. Suddenly, Eddie initiated an assault, blaming JP for the chaos. JP's feeble state made him an easy target, and he was placed on the platform, poised for transformation into ground meat. However, in a last-minute rescue, Camilla intervened, sparing JP. Afterward, Chris's bones began to snap and crack, and he grew increasingly aggressive and unstoppable due to the surging hormones. In a split second, he snapped Eddie's neck and killed him. As JP and the group moved away, Eddie was reduced to a thin pulp of meat. In the final scene, it was reported that Finn had fled the country and the entire burger chain had been shut down. JP's mother, along with all the other immigrant parents, was released, finally reuniting with their children.